The huge fuselage for the world's largest aircraft leaves its hangar in California to begin the 24-mile overland journey to the shores of the Pacific Ocean. One wing alone measures 165 feet, and the huge seaplane, when completed, will be powered by 8 3,000-horsepower engines. En route to a special graving dock, linesmen cut wires and shift poles to provide clearance for the huge plane. The mammoth hull will rest in this graving dock while the plane is assembled. As yet unnamed, the craft was designed as a cargo carrier, but it could be easily adapted to transport 700 passengers. This, the latest and largest transport plane, opens new horizons in man's conquest of the skies.
The H-4 Hercules, more commonly known as the Spruce Goose. It was a giant among giants, the largest aircraft ever built. Its short but fascinating story is matched only by its eccentric designer. Howard Hughes, oil millionaire, movie producer, and breaker of aviation records in the 1930s and 40s. It was Hughes' unyielding determination and aeronautical expertise that carried the project through to completion despite the many obstacles along the way. Originally, 3 of these Leviathans were ordered by the U.S. government in 1942 as an answer to the German U-boat threat against Allied shipping during World War II. As conceived, these flying boats would airlift enormous quantities of men and supplies across the Atlantic Ocean non-stop, thus avoiding any contact with submarines. In addition, the entire aircraft was to be built with materials considered non-essential to the war effort. The hull, wings, and tail assembly, everything but the engines, engine mounts, and hardware, were constructed of laminated wood, mostly birch, not spruce. But by 1944, the first aircraft had not yet been completed, although much of the original $18 million allocated had been spent. Discouraged, the War Production Board decided to terminate the project. Many in the government considered Hughes a reckless playboy and questioned his integrity regarding the entire project. Luckily, President Roosevelt suggested that at least one of the aircraft should be completed, and a new agreement was reached. Hughes forged ahead, though he was close to a nervous breakdown. By November 1947, after 4 years of engineering problems, material shortages, and lack of skilled labor, Hughes was ready to take the monster flying boat on its first taxi test. Hughes' critics had been relentless. In July, Senate subcommittee hearings had been held to determine if he had improperly influenced government officials in gaining more contracts. Hughes vehemently defended the project before members of Congress, rebuking those that claimed he had built an airplane that could never fly. On November 2nd, after inviting the national press and members of the Senate Investigative Committee, Hughes took the controls of the H-4 and began the scheduled demonstration of its water handling capabilities. It was an impressive sight. The wingspan measured 320 feet. That's longer than a football field and twice the distance that the Wright brothers had flown their first airplane. The tail was nearly 10 stories high. The crowd was surely impressed, but in moments, the unexpected was at hand. As the H-4 reached 90 miles per hour, it lifted into the air.
We are airborne, ladies and gentlemen. Truly up in the air. And I don't know whether, Howard, did you expect that? Certainly, I like to make surprises. You were surprised? You know, I said I thought I'd make a surprise.
Surprised they were. The plane could fly. But this would be its only flight. just 1 mile. Hughes felt vindicated nonetheless. Whether or not he had planned the flight is still a mystery, as is why the aircraft was never flown again. The Hughes flying boat rests in dry dock to this day, and still remains as much a curiosity as its enigmatic creator.